So you're all ready for ministry. You've memorized the Bible twice. You know the songbook front and back. You are on fire to share your faith with people, and you're all ready to go. However, you arrive at your first church, and you are met with some questions that you don't quite have an answer for. For instance, you want to open a bank account, but you're asked for a certificate of good standing. Or you're applying for a grant to start an after-school program, and one of the fields in the application form says FEIN. Or one of the members of the congregation wants to make a contribution through a corporate matching program, and they need a confirmation of your 501c3 status. These are all administrative questions relating to the formation documents of the congregation. And while you may not have filed these yourself, these formation documents are still useful and sometimes necessary in the operation of a congregation. And in this video, we're going to go through these formation documents, how they are used today, and if they have not yet been submitted, how you can file them yourself. The first and most important document in forming a church is the Articles of Incorporation. This is the initial formative document that, as soon as it's filed with the state, brings the church into existence. It incorporates it, making it a living legal entity. The Articles of Incorporation document is usually fairly brief, and it always includes this basic information: the name, the location of the organization, the registered agent if the organization does not have a physical address, the names of the initial incorporators of the organization and their addresses, and also the duration for which the church is to exist. For instance, a church's Articles of Incorporation could state that it is to exist for 50 years from the date of filing, and unknowingly, the church could no longer be legally incorporated. If this is the case, one can file a new set of Articles of Incorporation with the state, or can amend the existing articles. Many churches are set for a perpetual or ongoing duration, but if otherwise, it might be good to check and refile this document if necessary. The Articles of Incorporation is like a Declaration of Independence. It states what the organization is named, where it is, and some basic administrative information about its existence. However, if a church is also going to be applying for 501c3 status, there is also language that needs to be included in these Articles of Incorporation as mandated by the IRS. This language can be found on the IRS's website and adapted and included in one's Articles of Incorporation. This additional information includes a clear purpose for which the church operates. It includes a dissolution clause of what will happen to the property if the church closes. It limits the activities to those stated by the church. And it includes a prohibition against inurement or financial benefit to the members or directors of the church. Nearly all existing churches have been incorporated with the state. However, if filing for the first time, it may be wise to work with an attorney to properly complete and submit these Articles of Incorporation with the state. These Articles of Incorporation are the foundational document of the church, and ensuring that they are properly completed and filed is a prudent step. The Articles of Incorporation can include more information. Some even contain the bylaws of a congregation. However, this may not be the best approach, as any modifications to the bylaws would then necessitate an amendment submitted to the state. A church may have more flexibility if its bylaws exist apart from the Articles of Incorporation. And as an alternative to Articles of Incorporation, some churches are established by receiving a charter from its governing denomination. They thereby come into existence under the umbrella of a larger denominational body. In such situations, a church charter serves the same function as Articles of Incorporation. Once the Articles of Incorporation are filed with the state and a congregation legally exists, the next step is to acquire an FEIN from the IRS. The FEIN is the Federal Employment Identification Number. This is also commonly known as an EIN or as a tax ID number. This number is given by the IRS to identify the congregation. It is commonly used in employment forms, in filing taxes for the congregation, in opening a bank account, and for other official purposes. In fact, a congregation cannot hire individuals until an FEIN has been attained. The FEIN is analogous to a Social Security number for individuals, and it serves many of the same purposes except for an organization or corporation. Acquiring an FEIN is a fairly easy process. An application is submitted to the IRS on behalf of the congregation, and thereafter, a letter is received from the IRS stating the congregation's FEIN. While the FEIN is used for almost all purposes to officially identify the congregation, one caution should be mentioned, as some states issue a separate EIN or Employment Identification Number. In states that require this, it exists alongside an FEIN or federal number, and the state EIN is used for state taxes or other state business. In most cases, however, one can safely assume that an EIN being requested is likely the FEIN, unless stated otherwise. The next important formative document pertains to 501c3 nonprofit status. While churches are formed as nonprofit corporations, acquiring 501c3 status designates a church as a 501c3 charity. The principal benefit of 501c3 status is that donors can contribute to the organization and deduct their gift from their income taxes. This is a substantial benefit to a donor and is some incentive to contribute to the congregation. Now, you may have heard that churches do not need to apply for 501c3 status, and that is true. According to the tax code, churches do not need to receive separate 501c3 status. However, acquiring 501c3 status gives some protection to the congregation. If 501c3 status is not granted and a donor is audited, the burden of proof lies on them to demonstrate that the congregation meets tax-exempt requirements. This is usually a fairly heavy burden, and so people may be hesitant to donate unless a congregation has officially received 501c3 status. Moreover, many partnering nonprofit organizations require 501c3 status in order for them to cooperate. GuideStar, Amazon Smile, TechSoup, Thrive and Choice. These are but a sample of organizations that require a congregation to receive 501c3 status to work together with them. And likewise, many corporate donor matching programs similarly require 501c3 status. To attain this status, a Form 1023 or 1023-EZ is filed with the IRS. This application process is renowned for being rather lengthy, and a congregation may need to wait some months before 501c3 status is officially granted. And given the time it takes to process, it is probably advisable to complete this form under the guidance of an attorney. Online attorney corporations such as LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer can assist in the creation of all of these documents, and while these forms can be completed individually, it is probably a smart move to get some professional guidance and input if creating them oneself. Notification of 501c3 status of approval is received by a determination letter from the IRS. And if ever misplaced, this determination letter can also be found online through the IRS database. And a link to that page is found in the description below. And like the Articles of Incorporation, a church may qualify for group 501c3 status under the umbrella of its denomination. Your denomination may offer this possibility, and if so, it could save your congregation time and resources in acquiring, and could also be the solution for where your 501c3 status may currently reside. These three formative documents, the Articles of Incorporation, the FEIN, the 501c3 Letter of Determination, are all essential in forming a congregation, and they play continuing roles in the administration and operations of a church. However, there may be additional documents needed in forming a congregation. The reason for this is that rules for incorporation are governed by the states, and as state policy varies from state to state, the steps and the forms required do vary. Some states, as mentioned, will require a state EIN to be acquired. If congregations are selling any products or services, they may be required to acquire sales tax exemption status. Churches may be required to register as a charity in their state in order to solicit contributions. These and other documents may be required depending on the state, and all related information can be found through a state's Secretary of State office, with the exception of Alaska, Hawaii, and Utah. Furthermore, more information pertaining to nonprofit corporation law can be found through a state's Attorney's General office. States can also provide other necessary documentation to a congregation, including, most importantly, a certificate of good standing. This, also known as a certificate of authorization or certificate of existence, demonstrates that the congregation is current in its paperwork and is approved by the state for business. This certificate is often asked for by financial or insurance organizations, and it can be fairly easily acquired through a state's Secretary of State website. So that is an overview of formation documents for a congregation. The application forms are all linked in the description below, and if any of these documents are lost or misplaced, a copy of the originals can be requested from the state or the IRS, respectively. So now you are all ready to go. Thanks for joining in this video, and may God bless you today.